Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And while we're thinking about it, whenever you have an opportunity, we'd appreciate it if you'd jump online and give us some reviews and likes and some hugs and kisses and any other accolades and recommendations and commendations that you can give us. And if you're feeling really feisty and up to it, you can always send us an email at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com.
You can find us on Twitter and Reddit.
Yeah, the Reddit thing, we're still kind of working on that. Twitter's a little more active right now.
Yeah.
That's us.
We just need to figure out how to link them together. If it goes on one, it goes on both.
Is that a thing?
And some platforms, I don't know about Reddit. Reddit's kind of its own animal.
Yeah, it's its own. How do I keep this remotely PG? Special needs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Dumpster of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It's definitely the shiniest turd in the peanut, though.
Yeah.
And I do mean that order. Well, we do have a special guest today. I was down there at a local facility called Southern Concepts, and I happened to find one of our members. He may have been cleaning a window or licking it. I'm not sure, but Either way,
the window was clean.
Yeah, the window was spotless. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce Dalton. So, Dalton, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with our organization?
I have been on 6.5 years.
Okay, and how old were you when you joined?
I was 18.
Okay. Were you still in high school or did you graduate?
Freshly graduated.
And what made you want to join?
Actually, the old chief at the time he cuts my hair, and he was like, "You should join." I said, "Why not?" So he gave me an application, and been here ever since.
Okay. Have you? What do you do for work right now?
Electrician.
Okay. Have you ever thought about making a career out of this, or do you just like the volunteer side of it?
I thought about it, but I'm more on the just volunteer side. I think I enjoy it more than having to do it as a paid job.
Well, I can understand that sentiment.
Don't take the thing you love and turn it into a job. Sometimes it backfires.
Oh yeah, well, I could write a book on that. So, no, like I said, I'm all about that. I'd never make a career out of this. So in the 6.5 years that you've been here, has there been something in the vast array of all the crap we do? Is there something you particularly like? And then obviously the follow-up is something you particularly don't like.
I don't really say anything I don't like because, for one, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
But I would say I think I liked how we've done better on the training, and just in the last podcast, I believe it was, Jesse talked about how you get the newer guys and you have them train, and then they learn better, so they can teach better and understand it. I like it because since I've been on 6.5 years, and I've been trying to get more involved in the training. Just everything I've learned, and especially through this rookie school, I'm having to learn how to teach someone else differently than how I learned it.
Sure.
So I think that's one thing I really do enjoy, that it's helping me learn and become a better firefighter.
I went the wrong way. There we go.
It's helping me become a better firefighter because I'm learning with them.
Right. Well, I mean, we've said it 50 times. If we haven't said it 50 times, it's if you truly want to know if you understand a subject, try and teach it, because you'll find out real quick at how little you know about something when you have to teach it. And that's by far the easiest way to compound not only the skills but the practical knowledge side of stuff too. Your ability to actually apply that knowledge in teaching it to someone. What we're going to bounce off into is kind of a little bit of a different day that we had today. So, Jesse, what did we do today?
We took a little journey, not too far, about hour 15, in mid work week, and went to go tend to fire department stuff. So basically, we went to a meeting.
Yeah, and it was kind of an important meeting for us. At the end of the day, the meeting is basically training centered, and how to enhance and increase the training, not only for our organization, but everyone else that's around us in the immediate area too. And it was a meeting, to say the least, that was long overdue.
Oh yeah, definitely. That meeting has been not held for about 3 years now.
Yeah. Two minimum, realistically three.
Yeah, because the one that happened 3 years ago was just going through the motions, I would think. But this was a regional meeting that's to try to accomplish some regional training stuff, and it's part of what kind of COVID killed.
Right. Yeah, I didn't really. Again, being in Texas, COVID just affected us differently than, let's say, you were in California, or the Northeast, pretty much anywhere outside of the South. And COVID significantly impacted training in general for literally everyone, but particularly on the fire side. Just because of the nature of, you take all your first responders, you put them in a room, and you have the potential to take everyone out at once, and that's not a good position to be in. At the end of the day, I think that what came out of this has the potential to be not only a real benefit for us, but also another significant benefit for the other agencies that we plan on working with.
Yeah, it's definitely helps us all, us and our neighbors. And something that I look at doing training and being overtraining is, man, these people get tired of hearing my voice and seeing my face. And just a different face and a different voice periodically helps with keeping people engaged. It's not just the same person giving the same lectures, doing the same drills. It gets mixed up a little bit when you start involving some other people and have some interagency cooperation. We go to them and teach something, and they come to us to teach something, or we have a big school together, or whatever we're going to do with that when it matures and gets rolling again.
Yeah, one of the side fringe benefits of training outside of your jurisdiction and outside of your neighbor departments, and it's not necessarily a direct consequence of training and in the benefits of that, but it's the outside networking. And particularly in our case, it's really good for our membership to see that we really are blessed with what we have and the resources that are available to us and the budgets that we have, and just tools, equipment, apparatus, and on and on and on. I mean, we have a vast ocean of stuff that's readily available to any and every single person associated with the organization. And then when you go out and you actually go visit with some of your neighbors, and you realize that we are literally the United States and they are the Afghanistan of the volunteer fire department world, and they have nothing, and they work their absolute butts off to have nothing. And it really helps put kind of a different perspective on things.
Yeah. Well, and some of the things, and it goes back to my past, and I was perfectly content with 5 or 6 people being all you had on a structure fire, and I could get the job done with 5 or 6 people and minimum trucks, and you come into here and there's 56 people and 14 trucks, and literally every resource and that you could want is at your disposal, and you've got enough people that you can rotate in and out. And we literally just went from can to can't.
Right.
And when we either fell out in the front yard or we put the fire out, one of the two happened. There wasn't an in between, and there wasn't a relief crew coming. So, or if they were coming from 30, 40 miles away.
One thing, because what you just talked about kind of ties into what I was going to talk about. So I have to admit, I was pretty fired up over the fact that this meeting took place on a Wednesday at noon, and I ended up taking a day off of work, which is just, don't get me wrong, the day off work didn't break my heart, but it just, for whatever reason, the middle of the week crap just really infuriated me. And we had another guy from another department who was equally pissed about it, but he also, as he was, I don't want to say ranting, but very justifiably pointing out the lunacy of having a meeting at noon on a Wednesday for volunteer organizations. He did kind of shrug and hint at, the irony of me taking time off of work right now in the middle of the week means that I didn't have to take the weekend day off for my kids. And I was like, son of a biscuit eater, because that didn't make, I'd never even considered that. And that's actually a pretty valuable point at the end of the day.
And I think the balance of some of that stuff, like, it doesn't hurt for me to generally be gone a day or half a day or whatever from my business, because I have good people to tend to my stuff, right? If I didn't have good people, it would be a lot harder to do that kind of stuff. But I'm in a position where I have good people that tend to business and make things happen and work hard. And, I know they're not just staying clocked in and going to the bar or whatever.
Right.
I know that things are going to happen. And that's a benefit that I have that not everybody has. And, I think it depends on the amount of people that you're expecting to get at something like that, an event like that. And I think that today the amount of people was appropriate for what was trying to be achieved.
Well, I would argue it was a grand success.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of work to have to do to kind of get this critter up and going again, and to have that many people be willing to throw at least one give a damn back into the equation is actually pretty incredible.
Yeah, because I don't think there was anybody in the room that was opposed to anything that we were talking about, or what our stated goals were, or what we were trying to do, or why we were there to try to get things moving forward. Everybody was on board with pretty much the discussion. There was conjections and interjections, and there was stuff like that, but it was not to the point of this is completely wrong, we need to change and go the opposite direction. It was just minor things that were happening.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, basically everyone was on the same page.
Well, excuse the we had a herd of elephants come through and hit a china cabinet with a ball peen hammer. I don't know what happened. It was crazy.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I can say to bare minimum, those are the people that care. And whether it was 2 or 20, I would rather work with them than trying to deal with the people that truly don't want to be there.
Right. And I think everybody generally makes some kind of sacrifice of their, we're here because we make a sacrifice of our time, right? Generally, we don't necessarily make that sacrifice where it hurts us monetarily, but sometimes we do. It definitely hurts our family environments if we have that to some extent, because that's time away from them and that priority. But Dalton, you ever miss work or make, because of fire departments, you ever have those struggles where you're, and full disclosure, he works for me. So I know when he misses work now, but he hasn't always worked for me.
Actually, this is the first job that I truly was able to make calls because we're all in the fire department. But I think that's the best part about. Don't get me wrong, I like the job, but actually being able to a fire family like that we are able to unless we're doing something that we can't leave, but if it's something that we can drop what we're doing and do what needs to be done. But
and we work out of town constantly, and there's not that many opportunities for us to just go on calls. But if we're slow and we're cleaning the shop, yeah, we're gonna bust off and go to the call because that's better than cleaning the shop, right?
all the time.
Yeah, well, and it is. I don't. I'm going to sound cheesy when I say it. There's different levels of what people are going to be able to commit, and just because one person literally lives at the station and they literally have no life outside of that doesn't make them any more valuable than the one person that does have a full-time job, kids, works, church, 500 other things, and they're only there, I don't know, say 3 hours a month. Well, that's what they can give. And, that 3 hours can still be a sacrifice on someone, and that gets forgotten.
And it can still be a productive 3 hours. I mean, if they're hitting the ground running and they're getting stuff done, yeah, I mean, it's worth it, right?
Probably the only cog in the wheel that I would say needs to be addressed, and it can be an elephant in the room for some departments, is it's a big difference between a firefighter that rarely shows up and your chief or your training captain or whoever. Those are not the same commitments that you're making to the organization. I mean, the firefighter is kind of saying, "Hey, I'm here just for this." And I'm not talking about, some family emergency or health emergency. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you're at let's say 365 calls a year department, and your chief makes 3 calls that year, I'm going to argue that guy probably shouldn't be chief, and that you need to be looking at other gals and guys to be trying to fill that position, because that void in itself can be a real problem. Where I'm really going with this is that just certain positions have a higher expectation of participation, and the requirements to fulfill the needs of that position aren't necessarily call-based, but there are other tasks that have to be done.
Right, because you may have a guy or a gal that rarely makes calls or rarely makes scene. Maybe they come to the station because they live too far away, but when they do come, they're cleaning the bays out, or they're doing stuff that's productive, stuff that's beneficial for the department as a whole and the membership as a whole. That has value. That definitely has value, right? I mean, if you had somebody that just showed up after all the trucks left and blew the bays out every time and made sure that everything was picked up and cleaned up and had the hose stretched out for when the trucks got back and said, "You guys go take a break and I'll get these trucks back in service," that's huge. That's tremendous value to that. And I think that's something that we skip sometimes in some of the things that some of these people do. They may not always do those exact things, but they're working on stuff.
I would say that plays almost a bigger role, just because you have all those guys, whatever it is, coming back from a call, and then you have that guy that is ready to work and just out there waiting for you, jumping in. And
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I mean, we've all been on big long fires, and it's terrible when you come back. And, and it's not a 3-hour fire. It's one of those 9-hour fires. And when you come back, you have to deal with washing the hose. And it's like, man, just drag me behind the truck because I'm not doing it right now. We're just going to grab some fresh hose off a rack and load it up. And we'll wash this stuff later. But that one guy that just happened to be there, realistically 9 hours at the station, and they help you, makes all the difference in the world. And it just, I cannot describe it how important those people are, because on the subconscious side, what you're getting is the support that you desperately wanted, and now it's being reinforced by actually seeing it in action.
Yeah. And that goes with the guy that keeps your stats, or those jobs that are not frontline firefighter jobs. The importance of those jobs to the health and the stability of your organization is not always on everybody's forethought. That's not what's right in front of their face, and they don't think about that stuff. And those guys are as important and as a part of your team as anybody else on your team, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it just, for lack of better words, they get overlooked until you need them.
Right.
Or the flip side of that is they're overlooked until that one time they're not there. And then you're like, Christ. Now it's terrible.
And the same goes for the guys that are going to grab the nozzle and run into the house every time. They don't need to think about the guy, the pump operator. That job is important. That job is real important. The ventilation guys, that job is real important. None of these jobs are more important than the other, in my mind. And I used to teach that when I'd teach pump ops. That, like, you're just as important as the nozzleman, because if you don't do this job, what's he going to do? Spit on it? You can get the cop to come shoot it. That might put it out.
It worked in Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of that concept, and you've got to realize that, and that's all that team building stuff and all that we talk about all the time. But you got to play the hand you're dealt, and you've got to use people to their strengths and not ride them for their weaknesses. I think that's a big deal too. I think we have a tendency as a group of alpha male guys, which is what most of us are, that we find something to just pick on somebody about, and we'll focus on those things that they do wrong to the point of we're literally slitting our own throat with our staff.
Yeah, well, or the flip side of that, typical very, very young man, young firefighter, young woman problem is they equate call volume to contribution. Let me kind of square that away right now. You're so far out of the realm of reality in that lone characteristic and weighing factor that it's almost laughably wrong. One of the most important people on my organization hasn't made a call in 3 years. The work that our stats guy does at face value is really, other than bragging rights for the firefighter, not worth much. But when you get to the political side of it, the stats and the call times and the response, those are worth as much as 50 solid volunteers, because you have an argument that's politically made for you and just spelled out, where you can sit there and be like, look, this is what those 50 people are getting you, and this is how I reinforce them and continue to provide the most and best and premium of trucks, tools, equipment, and on and on and on. And like I said, the stats guy hasn't made a call in 3+ years, and he's arguably the most important guy on the department from my perspective. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to take away from training or the other people, but that stats guy, from my perspective, is priceless. The definition of priceless.
Well, that guy, the stats guy, is the way that you judge how everything else is working, right? You can judge your training by that guy. You can look at the times and the way that, and the people and what's happening. You can look at your fleet through those stats. You can look at your staffing levels through those stats. You can look at all those things and tell whether or not you're doing a good job or a bad job through those stats, right? If you go to the room and contents fire and it takes 6 hours and you've got 14 people on scene, that was probably a problem with training. I'm just going to put that out there and guess that that's where the problem failed on that, because you didn't use proper tactics and techniques and do the right thing if a room and contents took you 14 hours.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of real simple jobs to overlook. Someone's brand new on the department. They can't do much. Their contribution's not invaluable. Don't minimalize that person, because you're killing yourself if you start playing that game. Everyone had to start somewhere. And I mean, like I said, I see the other side of that where, oh, that guy's new, screw him. And it's like, no, don't, shut up. That's not how this works.
Yeah, and I joke all the time, and Dalton can tell you, like, I pick on stuff, and I'll say, like, all you had to do is just be more knowing that, and you'll know it, right? Or if you lived here all your life, you'd know where that street was. And it's just stupid stuff like that is, it's just fun, but there's people that really think that way, and you've got to be.
Hell, they're on our department.
Yeah. Like, I was born knowing this, and you should know it too, because I was born knowing it. Well, no, you weren't. But I do, on the flip side of that, I'll tell people, well, at one point you didn't know how to walk, and you figured that out. So let's figure this out too. It's no different. Walking's probably way harder.
I've got a new saying to when people say, hey, I have a stupid question. I like to tell them this. You need to ask every single stupid question you have, because the more stupid questions you ask is the more knowledge we're going to give you, and you're going to run out of stupid questions. Ask them.
And you'll get to real questions,
yeah.
Right?
Well, and you'll get past that even. You'll get to the point where they're answering the questions down the road. Knowledge is a tricky thing. It's not a sponge. You can't just, stick your finger over the newspaper and telepathically absorb the day's news. There's an amount of effort that has to be applied to be able to learn. And part of that is the question process. And again, the more stupid questions you ask is the faster you actually become knowledgeable.
Yeah. And one of my other deals that I use and say all the time, like, your value and I use it as an employee, but it could be a volunteer, it could be whatever. Your value is measured in your ability to solve problems, right?
Right.
So if you can't solve a very difficult problem, then you probably don't have a lot of value to whoever you work for, your department, or anything really. But if you can figure out how to solve some more complex problems, you start gaining in that knowledge base and the ability to solve stuff. You have a lot more value to whatever organization you're with. And truly the people that excel in stuff are really good at solving problems. That's the answer. It's not a degree and it's not this and that. They're just good at solving problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at some of the biggest, most successful companies of all time, particularly like their CEOs and presidents and on, a lot of the time, at the end of the day, as those companies kind of reach their pinnacle, they're not the they're the figurehead, but they're not the actual problem solver anymore.
Right.
It may have been when the company started. Very good example of this would be like a Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or John Rockefeller. Yeah, they started the business at the foundation, but there's a certain point at where they became so big that you can't solve all those problems, and you literally have to start hiring people to solve those problems. That same concept actually applies into your volunteer departments too. Probably one of the worst things you can do as a chief is be just a micromanaging devil and not being willing to take some of your problems and share them with other people and use them as an opportunity to build, grow, and develop that individual in the process too.
Yeah. And if you don't basically force people to solve some problems, you're not helping them, right? You're holding them back from ever becoming successful at anything. You've got to get all those individuals to some level of solving some kind of problem, right? That happens when you lock your keys in your truck, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah. That's your problem. You created it. You solve it. I'm going to continue to do this thing over here. And
Training really helped on that situation.
yeah, you had training to figure that out. But it's all.
Did he
it's
take
all,
a brick and throw it through your truck window?
No. No, he pried the door out, got a stick, and poked the door lock button. Worked great. Good job. I mean, but that's what you need from people is the ability to figure things out and solve some problems. And in the fire service and what we do here, those problems are coming at you like super fast. It's not as simple as the keys are locked in the truck. It's there's 14 burning babies in that bedroom right there. Like, that's a problem. We got to figure out how to solve that. And, the car's dangling off the cliffside and there's somebody sitting in the driver's seat. We got to figure out how to solve that problem too. And the problems are never ending because we don't go to somebody's house for dinner. Like, we're not going there for cake and cookies. We're going there because there's a problem, right?
Right.
So we inadvertently are the problem solvers. That's what our whole job is. And the problems are all over the board and what they could be, from, simple problems to big problems. The smoke detector chirping up there, that's a pretty simple problem,
And I'm going to segue right off of this into kind of like almost, just maybe even to keep the podcast short, and this would be short, but that's what we were doing today, was solving problems.
That's it.
And your ability to absorb the commitment that sometimes absolutely responsible for your organization, and then being able to also compound that by saying, well, now we get to add more because it's not really up for debate. This has got to happen, and this is why. And I don't think the why needs too much explaining. But, you can sit there and whine and moan and complain and make it someone else's fault, and this isn't fair, or you can just go take care of the damn problem. And in our particular case, we're taking care of the problem, and it's not just one person. Arguably the most important part is it's not one person trying to fix it.
Yeah, no, there's a good group of people that were ready to roll up their sleeves and solve some problems. And it'll get solved, and I have every reason to believe it'll be good and great going forward. Just based off of enthusiasm is the wrong word. I think the commitment would be more of what everybody was enthusiastic to get something happening, but they were also committed to getting something to happen and moving it forward. And I think that's the part that'll make it successful, because the enthusiasm, that can fade real quick.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that can go away immediately.
Yeah, as soon as the giant wall of work shows up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's you could almost guarantee it off that. That's when you find out who the committed are.
Yeah, the ham and eggs breakfast, right?
Yeah. Jesse, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it. And I think we touched on what we wanted to touch on.
Yeah, just keep it short this time. We've been getting pounded for the last really month, and October could never end soon enough for me. I said that about September, and October's 50 times worse.
It is worse, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on this time of year. It's difficult. Like, we've struggled for a couple of weeks to find the time to sit down and not be just dead tired to even record this podcast. So.
Well, I mean, again, it's our day off, but all said and done, for all intensive purposes, our day started at 10 a.m., and it really didn't stop until we sat down at, I don't know, what time is it? We'll call it 7 p.m. So it's a 9-hour shot. Not that we were necessarily laying brick the entire day.
I was.
I wasn't.
Okay.
I was spread eagle in the back seat.
Yeah.
I thought I was.
You thought you were? Well, we're not a brick company. We're an electrical company.
Thank God.
You got anything to add?
I don't think so.
Sorry for the short one. We'll bring you on for the 19-hour marathon that we'll have next month.
I've been up since 3 a.m., so
Good luck with that.
yeah, it's good.
All right.
All right.
This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
We appreciate you guys listening. Have a good evening.
Good night.